From Tally to Cali.
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by
Vitamin Energy.
The vitamins.
The energy.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! It's Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy. Coming up on today's show, Mike Norvell begins marketing the new look Noles, but a familiar formula will be used, but with an important wrinkle. I'm giving you the green light to put ridiculously large expectations on one newcomer, and we size up the new hires at Clemson and Miami. Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. It's all one word, everybody. Head over there. See all the different varieties, different flavors. They're all great. They all help in different things, so figure out what you need the most help with. I recommend the Workout Plus, the sour apple flavor. Energize you for 7 hours. 260 milligrams all-natural caffeine, nice slow absorption throughout the day. Keeps you going for, again, 7 hours. No high peaks, no low lows, just a nice steady incline, a climb, some might say, throughout your day. VitaminEnergy.com, shake it and take it. Sip the juice. Again, 260 milligrams, all natural caffeine, no sugar crash. Stuff works. It's clinically tested. It's clinically proven. Trust us. Trust us over at WarChant.com to keep you covered like nobody else on the Florida State beat. In fact, who else is covering any college football program as good as WarChant.com? Even though it was a 2-10 season, we're still out there grinding away for you. Shout out to Ira Schofel, sat down with Kes McCorvey the other day. Go check that out if you need some content to carry throughout the day. How was headlines the other day, Corey? I haven't tapped in yet to headlines. If I can't catch it live on the radio, which I think is the absolute ideal, perfect conditions, sometimes I might not listen to it on the podcast for. But I don't recommend that for everybody. Get your fill of headlines. How was headlines the other day?
Oh, well, you didn't miss anything because we didn't have it.
Oh, what happened?
Well, Ira's in Nashville. He's in Nashville at the On3 convention or whatever the heck it is.
Nice.
So, yeah, he's in Nashville with Gene. So we decided to punt this week. Okay. I have a little something later in the week. I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. Well,
but we still got you covered at warchant.com, even if there is no headlines.
Exactly. There we go. Good segue back. Hey, maybe not fair time to check in, but you talked about the old Cub the other day in the text message chain. How's our guy Brady Clark doing? We haven't checked in a while. What this is? Are we sophomore year, junior year of high school? Where are we at right now? How's our guy doing?
He's junior year of high school. Baseball conditioning has started last week, I think. It was very cold up here in Atlanta. I just got up here on Tuesday night. So it was very cold up here, so that didn't make conditioning the easiest thing in the world. But, yeah, they're going through it. We'll see if he makes varsity, if he plays for the varsity, all that good stuff.
Should we do a live show with all proceeds going to fund Brady Clark's ascension to the varsity squad?
Well, if we can raise enough money that the coach has to play him, sure. The coach's kid is going to Georgia. Right. So yeah, it's not daddy ball. His kid can really play. I don't know that he's going to just pay. He's going to take money just to play Brady.
Okay. All right, well, on Tuesday night, yesterday, that is, everybody, Mike Norvell, Jeff Culhane, voice of the Seminoles, hopped online to do a little bit of a Seminole Boosters town hall. Vision of excellence. Yeah. Sum up how the offseason has kind of gone so far for Florida State. Not too much newsy stuff. A lot of things that we've heard from Mike as we were able to speak to him after the hires of Gus Malzahn and Tony White. We've obviously spoke to Gus Malzahn and Tony White. We spoke to all the new hires. We spoke to Malzahn. We spoke to Herb Hand. We spoke to Tony White, Evan Cooper, Tim Harris Jr., Terrence Knighton. This was a little bit of an interface for Coach to be out there in front of all you folks, all you boosters, talking about it. Again, not too much newsy stuff, but we had mentioned it on the show the other day about the possibility of the spring game, spring showcase not going down. That appears to be the case. A little bummed out. I kind of get it, but still a little bit bummed out, Corey.
Yeah, so they announced officially. I think people had kind of heard about it, and it had been whispered about for a few weeks. But, yeah, they officially announced that there won't be a spring showcase, Aslan. It's not a Garden Gold game. It's not a spring game. It's a spring showcase. And that won't be nothing. There will be no showcase. When you go 2-10, they cancel the showcases, everyone. Let that be a lesson. No, they said that because of stadium renovations. And I think more than anything, man, he didn't say it. He didn't come out and say it because he talked about like it could be hard. There were other barriers if they were going to move it. I mean, you could put it at Gene Cox Stadium. You could. I mean, there aren't a lot. You could go to FAMU, ask them if you could use their stadium, or go, somewhere else like Jimbo did in 2016. The reality is, he just really wants that extra day of practice. Like, I feel like if Norvell really wanted a spring game, they would be having a spring game. But I don't think he wants a spring game because I think, as he pointed out repeatedly in the hour-long conversation he had with Culhane, they got 15 practices, and they're installing a new offense and a new defense. Every day is critical. And I feel like you probably get more of an extra day of install than you do a showcase, which is like a glorified scrimmage where they're not being tackled in practice either. But it's like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think he's upset that they're not going to have a showcase. Not saying he encouraged it, but I don't think he fought too hard for it. Because I do think he thinks a practice is probably more valuable right now with a brand new coaching staff. And at this point, what are we up to now? 37 new players that, and 30 of them are on campus. That you need that practice. That practice is more vital. But they did say it was because of the stadium renovations. I didn't want you to think they just canceled it willy-nilly for no reason. They're trying to get the stadium ready for Alabama.
And to your point, also was asked to maybe explain why they didn't put it elsewhere, when they were doing the Champions Club. Is that reason why they went to Orlando the one year? Was that because they were doing Champions Club in Doak and they – I don't know. But anyways,
maybe. Yeah, I don't remember.
We all remember they had the spring game back in either 15 or 16 down there in Orlando. I guess apparently that might have caused some kind of – it would have triggered some sort of NCAA thing where, you're limited in terms of the amount of time you can spend off campus, and
right.
It would have just had some sort of collateral damage you didn't want to deal with. But the last few years, the spring showcase has been not a glorified scrimmage. It's been a glorified practice. I mean, they've pretty much done everything we would watch them do during a practice, but just inside of the stadium in front of a bunch of people. So, I was wondering if, they've done the spring or the fall preview stuff where the ACC network has come to Tallahassee and they've kind of hung out in one corner of the practice field. It would have been cool if they would have maybe just done on the practice field, made it open to elite donors, but then still televised it, but not necessarily live on ACC Network because they don't televise a lot of these spring things live. They could have probably edited it down, but I don't know, it's been maybe cool to, let some of your higher level boosters check out practice, which they're still able to do.
I think they can anyway. I think the people the Bound Society members, they'll be like, okay, when can you get here? All right, we'll start practice then. I mean, they get that's obviously hyperbolic, but they get their access. So I just think, look, I don't know where spring games will be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Obviously, they're not nearly what they used to be in terms of, energy, excitement, tackling, real chances to I don't know, man. It's like
it's all of our faults. It's because it's so covered. I mean, everything is covered so hyper critically and closely now that spring games used to be like this big debut of all these newcomers. But it's like, hey, man, we're going to speak probably to some of these guys in the coming weeks. We're going to be able to go watch. We think, historically, we get to see the last tour of duty workout. So, there's not as much surprise, especially when you're on this beat and this coach lets you kind of cover practice every single day.
Yeah. So, that was the newsy part. I don't know how much that impacts people listening to this. I'm sure there's a few dozen, hundreds, I don't know, that listen to this that are bummed because they did want to come up in April. Come up in April and watch a baseball series instead.
Yeah, man.
It's 20. You come. I know even if you're not a huge baseball fan, they're going to be good this year. They got maybe the number one pitcher in the country. So come up here. They got the number 2 freshman in the country, according to D1 Baseball or Perfect Game, one of those. So come up here and watch baseball weekend instead.
All right, so it was a nice organized kind of Q&A that Culhane did with Norvell. And they went through everything pretty much, all the new hires and then, the portal strategy, things like that. I wanted to play this. Mike was asked about, bringing Gus, what Gus kind of brings to the table. And I found it interesting. So I want to kind of get your take on it, Corey, and then I'll ask you kind of a follow-up and we'll explore the space.
For us, it's going to start on the ground. We got to be able to establish the runs, or be able to establish the running game. It's something that he's done a great job at. I think, this last year, at UCF, he had top 10 rushing offense. It's something that, he's done, I think the 19 years in college football, I think he's had, 16,000 yard backs. I mean, it's something that, we're going to get established and, something that we're really excited about and that we've been accustomed to, these, these last these last few years in our time here in Tallahassee. But it's something we got to get back to, and that's going to open up everything else vertically down the field and what we're going to be able to do in the passing.
Sounds very kind of similar, Corey, to probably the idea of last year's offense, right? We're gonna run the heck out of the ball, and that's going to be able to open up things downfield. But the real wrinkle here, Corey, the real moment of growth here is that maybe there's a true embracing of needing a dynamic threat at quarterback to make that happen. Maybe some of last year was, we can have a grown man offensive line, but if we don't have great running backs and a great quarterback to keep some things honest, I don't think anybody anticipated how bad things looked last year, but maybe what prevents that from ever happening is having a quarterback like a Thomas Castellanos. Maybe the Jordan Travis part of this equation might have been quickly forgotten for whatever reason, but maybe this whole sort of theory about we're going to run the heck out of the ball, we have to, that's what we're going to do, that's going to open everything up downfield. Yes, it's the same plan as last year, but now they've got a quarterback that's going to be able to make it kind of foolproof. I
think, yes. I mean, Castellanos is a proven runner. Again, he ran for over 1,000 yards in 2023. He's one of the, as Norvell talked about, and as I wrote about, it's on Warchant right now. People listen to this. He called him like one of the most dynamic players in the country, and he is as a running quarterback. There's no doubt about it. He is very unique. He is almost about one of one across the country as far as his ability to run and avoid pressure and make plays with his legs. But so that is, yes, that's a big plus in that. It's a big box to check in that column. But also, I think it goes back to the two guys he hired. Like, again, Herb Hand and Gus Malzahn, they don't just wish to have a running game. They don't just wish upon a star and hope it happens. It's what they do. It's just what they do. Malzahn especially. As Norvell just said, he's had 16 1,000-yard rushers out of 19 seasons. I don't know if that number is quite accurate. It might be 17 out of 20. It's somewhere in that neighborhood, though, because I remember looking it up. Or maybe it's in his bio. But I can tell you this, Alex Atkins was 0 for 5. He was the offensive line coach, and I know he wasn't the OC the whole time, but he was the offensive line coach for 5 years at Florida State. One of them was a COVID year, so we'll cut that short. He was 0 for 4 with 1,000-yard rushers. Malzahn is 16 of 19 or 17 of 20, something like that. He's over 80%. You were at Mike Norvell. Let me put it another way, because Mike Norvell has been the play caller. Mike Norvell is at 0% since he got to Florida State of having a 1,000-yard rusher. And I don't know if you guys remember, he had a pretty good running back. Now, Trey Benson split time. Trey Benson could add 1,400 yards if they give him the ball a lot, but Trayshawn Ward was on the team, and then 2023, Toafili. So he split carries. But even still, the point remains, Gus Malzahn's track record of being able to run the ball is undebatable. Indebatable? Non-debatable? So you can't debate it.
Not debatable.
You
Not
can't
debatable.
debate it.
Right.
Yeah, you can't debate it. So that, I think, even more so than Herb Hand, although they've worked well together. Because O-line coaches, man, we'll see. Florida State hasn't had a great one since, I don't know, Jimmy Higgins? Before that, Brad Scott, so Jimmy Higgins got fired. So, man, they haven't had a great offensive line coach. So I don't know if Herb Hand's the real deal. I don't know if he's the best offensive line coach in America or one of them. I think he is, just going by his track record. But I do know Gus Malzahn's going to have a running game. I just do. And it does absolutely help. So that's the thing about Malzahn, right? He looks at I think this is what could have possibly happened. He looked at the personnel on this team, the running backs and the offensive line, and he's like, well, obviously we got to get better offensive linemen, but the way we are currently constructed, we cannot have an average athlete at quarterback. We can't even have a pretty good athlete at quarterback. We need a superior athlete at quarterback to get us to run the ball the way we want to run the ball, and they went and got the best one in the portal. Right? Don't you think Malzahn's the kind of guy that identifies that?
Yeah,
yeah.
I just wonder how much of it, again, is Gus is like, hey, man, I did not have that threat. I ran the ball well, but, maybe their offense wasn't able to salt games away the way he wanted to in the second half of the season because KJ Jefferson just kind of wasn't it.
He's not going to KJ Jefferson's not going to give you 8 yards on 3rd and 6.
Right.
Castellanos can. That's just part of what he can do. You're right. That's a great point. He can salt away a game. He's going to also open up holes. But I think, again, the difference is, and I know you guys all heard this last year about the running game. The difference last year is we saw in 2023 they didn't run the ball well. And we were dumb to just believe it was going to be better because they got a couple of guards in the portal. They lost their best running back. They lost their mobile quarterback. And that offensive line just wasn't good enough. This offensive line, talent for talent, body for body, I don't know if it's much better. You know what I mean? You got a 3-year starter at Vanderbilt. You got a the kid at Ole Miss is from Ole Miss is the real deal. The other guys I think are just kind of pretty good college football players. Now, together, cohesively, they might, if that's a word, they might end up being a good offensive line. But even if they're just an average offensive line, the quarterback changes the whole. He changes the numbers. He changes the whole complexion. And you know that Malzahn and Herb Hand, unlike the previous offensive brain trust, and that includes Mike Norvell, these two guys will figure out a way to be sure they can run the ball. I just trust Malzahn in that more than I trust Mastromato hit a 48-yard punt. I just think that he's gonna be able to run the ball. They might still not be a good offense. They might not win a ton of games. I don't know. They are going to run the ball. That's just what Malzahn does.
Corner Pocket's going to deliver great food and great times. That's what I know. CPTallybar.com, the website, 2475 Appalachia Parkway, the physical address. I hope you had fun at trivia last night, everybody. In Corey's absence, there was a vacuum of ability. So
my team was still there. We struggled. Apparently, we struggled, and it was one of the nights where one of the categories I really, really would have helped, but I wasn't there, so I let my team down.
Is there like a designated Corey substitute, or is it a revolving door?
It's a revolving door. It's a great question, Aslan. It's a revolving door, and yeah, we don't have a permanent because who wants to fill those shoes on a consistent basis? That's tough. That's tough. So they rotate it as to not put too much pressure on any one person.
Look at that. That's how it works out there. Everybody's in a good mood. Everybody's thinking about everybody else. They want everybody else to have a good time. Check it out over at Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Delicious food, including the Corey wrap, everybody. And daily drink specials, daily lunch specials, Vegas wall of screens, TVs galore as we head into the second round of the playoffs this weekend for the NFL. And then Monday, we have the national title game. Everything you want is going down over the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Go check it out, 2475 Appalachia Parkway, Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. We're back. It's Wake Up Warchant. It is presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. Shake it, take it. 78% of people agreed that the shots are effective at reducing brain fog during the 14-day clinical trial. Check it out, vitaminenergy.com. All right, so Florida State's going to need a running game. Hopefully they're going to have all that established. Some of the ingredients, better offensive line, maybe some of these freshman running backs take another step. Maybe Osmain Chroma's the truth. But you still need some downfield passing game. And we mentioned this on a previous show. I just need to stop saying that. This is some sort of verbal crutch, Corey. But when we were talking about Deuce Robinson, I think you mentioned that when we think about all these transfers that come in and what their floors are, what their ceilings are, like we feel really comfortable with kind of what we imagine what Deuce Robinson can be. So maybe it's like we feel safe with what his floor can be. But I do wonder if we're being a little too cautious to not fully embrace just how high his ceiling possibly could be. Norvell was asked about Deuce. Want to play his response and kind of get your thoughts afterwards, Corey?
This is just a dynamic threat, and to have his size, speed. I think that's one of the things that when you watch him, just how easily he moves. He's explosive. He can get in and out of breaks. There's not a route on the route tree that he can't run. He's a guy that has made plays in big moments, but we think that he's just scratching the surface to what he can do and where he can go. And there's going to be a lot of comparisons to even past guys, but I really think he's unique to himself. He's just really a special talent, a guy that is driven and hungry to go be the best.
Corey, is it possible for a guy like Deuce, can your most certain player, your most firm known, can that also be the player that possesses the biggest upside for you? And if they can, what does that mean for what he could be?
I don't think he's the most firm known of the 16, but I do think that
who is?
Look, I think the Ole Miss lineman is
really. Oh.
Yeah, I think. I mean, wasn't he like honorable mention All SEC? He's been a 2-year start in the SEC. Also, as far as what you're getting, like what you're getting from the Ole Miss lineman. I think you know what you're getting from most of those linemen because they played so much. It doesn't mean he's like they're your biggest stars or the best portal guys. I just think they're the most known commodities. That's the thing with Deuce Robinson. I think his floor is he's still going to be a solid ACC starter. His ceiling is he could be the best receiver in the conference or one of them. You know what I mean? Like it's a pretty big fluctuation, but I think that's the truth. I don't think we think that about maybe any of the other guys that are coming. I think their floors are their ceilings are lower. Like, okay, he might be a second team all conference guy. He might be the best player on the offensive line. Well, this guy might be the best receiver in the conference. Perhaps he's certainly got some that ability with that size and that speed. And I just again, as Norvell talked about, I love the fact that he's made plays in games. Like he only had one catch against Penn State, but I think it was like a 25 or 30 yard contested catch against Penn State, folks. And that was a very close game. I know they lost, but
went to overtime, I think.
Yeah,
right?
And it was a big catch. I think that set up a touchdown. He had a touchdown against Michigan. I think he had 90 yards against Nebraska, which is obviously a good defense. So I like that he's done it against good defenses. This is not, again, it's not a wish and a hope. This is a known commodity that you're getting somebody that can produce. The question is, how much can he produce? He didn't really get a chance at USC. They had a lot of guys. They threw it to other guys a good bit. I think he's got a chance to have. And I think it was interesting when Norvell talked about he's going to be compared to former guys. We all know who he's going to be compared to. There is a chance he's better than Johnny Wilson. Maybe a pretty good chance. Like, I guess I would say it like this. What do we think the odds are he gets drafted before the 6th round? Because that's where Johnny went. Now, that doesn't just dictate how good a college football player you are as your draft, where you're drafted, but it's a pretty good indicator of overall talent and ability. Johnny made a ton of plays in his 2 years. I'm not dismissing or discounting any of that. He made some huge catches, but there's a chance Deuce Robinson's better than him. Well, that would be nice, right? Especially when you got a 5'10", 5'9" quarterback that's not the most accurate in the world, but you got a big 6'6" kid that can go get it, that is maybe bursting at the seams, ready to take off and be that breakout guy, that Trey Benson or that Johnny Wilson. And I'm not comparing him like to Johnny Wilson's, as Norvell said, he's kind of unique to himself, just in his breakout ability, like the fact that he could go from a sort of known to a well-known to a star. I just think he has the best chance there. And it sounds like Norvell thinks that exact same thing. Like he was effusive talking about Deuce Robinson.
Yeah, I'm not one to advocate dreaming the big dream and putting undue pressure on some of these kids. And it's a show in middle of January, so maybe some of this will be forgotten. But like he is the one singular player where you think about, maybe I'd sometimes say, kind of a guy is who he is, and then people like Laszlo, people get better year over year, and I don't maybe factor that in enough. But I mean, he's still, I think he's only 19, Corey. So maybe he turns 20 this season. He. His whole life he's been a multi-sport guy. I think even at SC he was playing a little bit baseball on the side and moonlighting. We won't need your help on the dime. I think we'll be all right, Deuce. But if you want to go out there, I'm sure Link can maybe find a way to.
What about Cam
help.
Davis, by the way? Cam Davis and
BJ Gibson.
BJ Gibson they're not on the roster, I don't think.
Oh, well,
they just gave up the dream, I guess. Yeah. Both those guys were pretty highly sought baseball players.
Yeah, we'll have to talk to Link and figure that out.
There was certainly they could at very least they could be pinch runners and defensive replacements in the outfield, you would think.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, but when you think about Deuce again, and if he can be Johnny-esque, better than Johnny, that's again, I don't want to put so much pressure on the kid, but when you start kind of thinking about things in the offseason, that's not the most unreasonable wish or hope. And if he can, year 3 of his college kind of journey, maybe a little bit more of a simplistic offense. Mike said that there's no route that he cannot run, so it's not like they need to dummy anything down for Deuce, but just, I don't know how much, Lincoln and the, air raid sort of stuff, maybe just could be paralysis by analysis for a wideout. But, year 3, he has a firm understanding of what the college game is now. And it's not the Big Ten, it's the ACC, so there might be some more favorable matchups here. Like, that is the one player that can do some really unexpected things. shoot a really high number that we're not expecting, and then we can maybe look back on it like, all right, well, we should have probably seen that coming, and it's going to make a huge difference in how this team is going to be able to perform offensively. So I'm really excited about what Deuce can possibly be.
And I really like, and I know we all have to take coaches' words, and I'm just saying coaches in general, with a grain of salt, because they're always, especially Norvell, he's excited about everything. He's effusive in his praise about every facet of the program and player, even though they just went 2-10. But I love the fact that he said he wants to be great. I don't take that lightly, because he didn't say that about everybody he talked about. He hasn't said that about everybody he's talked about the last 5 years. He said I can't remember exactly how he ended that quote, but it was something about how hard he works and he wants to be great. And man, I love to hear that, because I don't know that Johnny did. I think Johnny wanted to play in the NFL. I think Johnny worked hard, but did he work as hard as he possibly could? Does he love football? Is he in love with that sport? I don't know. I still don't know. Johnny might win a Super Bowl this year. So might our men Burse and Fisk. They play each other this week.
Let's
I
go.
think.
They do, correct.
Yeah. But I to hear that Deuce Robinson, because man, when you're that kind of dude, when you're 6'6", and in high school, you know the pedigree he comes from. His dad was a super duper recruit that played both ways at Florida State, and he's been kind of getting coached like that for 15 years. It can be easy to kind of fall into like just routine and just like, I don't know, man. Like it's almost like you're created in a lab. Because your dad knows what he's doing so well, and he's probably had Deuce running sprints and doing receivers drills since by the time he was 6 or 8. And maybe the love could go away from that, or it becomes more of just like, football by numbers. Like you're not really invested in the game or the outcome or being great. You're just doing what you do because you've always done it. And I don't know why I keep coming up with this, but it's like, and Trae Young, I know I'm an Atlanta Hawks fan, so this analogy might lose itself a little bit, but the way he was brought up by his dad, it was almost like he wanted to play basketball 1-on-5 or 2-on-5. Just this is how you run a pick and roll. This is how you shoot right hand. This is how you shoot left hand. This is a quick release. This is how you get by this guy. This is how you get by that guy. And it was all about dominating the ball, having the ball in your hand, and just numbers, just chasing numbers. If you win, great. If you lose, great. You got your numbers. And not really being a part of a team. It was like he was created in a lab and wasn't really a part of a team. And I just think that, like, when you hear that somebody works hard and wants to be great, that fills you up a little bit. I just love hearing that, because when you're that big, you're already dominating folks. You've been dominating folks your whole life, and when you get into college and get your nose punched a few times, you can back down, or you can say, okay, I did what I was supposed to do. I did what my dad wanted me to do. I got to USC. I got to Florida State. A mission accomplished. It doesn't sound like that's the idea at all with this kid. He's not okay just catching 25 for 300 next year. He's not okay for making one big play every couple games. It sounds like, and I'm reading a lot into one sentence out of an hour-long conversation, but I just love hearing the fact that he says he wants to be great. I don't think this is a kid that was created in a lab just to go put up numbers, although that's part of being great. I think this kid is a football player. It wants to be a great football player, and they just need a lot of them. They need a lot of them, and hopefully he is one of the leaders. Oh, real quick, I wanted to mention this. One thing that caught my eye when Norvell was talking about the offensive linemen. Did you hear that, what he said about those guys?
I mean, I had it playing, but it might have gone through one ear and out the other one. But I know he talks about physicality.
He did talk about that, but he said 3 of them were captains on their teams last year.
Right.
Man, I love to hear that.
Yeah.
I just love, because they weren't upperclassmen. I mean, they were, but they weren't seniors. Because sometimes a captainship is just awarded to a captaincy. I'm struggling with the words today. I don't know. Is it captainship or captaincy? Captaincy. It's just awarded to the oldest guy on the team. You've been here 5 years. It's yours. They were juniors, most of them, I think, and they were still captains. Man, 3 of them were. That just, I don't know, man. That makes you a little bit excited about the kind of leadership you're bringing in when you can bring in 3 captains from big boy football programs. That's good, I think, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what you're looking for. You need some leadership.
A shout out to Sam Singleton Jr., named a Football Writers of Association of America freshman All-American, Corey. And I saw this in the release. Singleton from Charleston, South Carolina, returned 15 kickoffs for 373 yards, including a 95-yard touchdown at Duke for his first career score. Singleton, the only Power 4 freshman with a kickoff return in 2024, and he became the first Seminole freshman with a kick return touchdown since 2013.
Yeah,
which, if I'm not mistaken, was Levante Kermit Whitfield. Yeah. And buckle up here, Corey. I mean, I know it take us on all kinds of weird places, but just thinking about these teams that are left standing in the playoff and just how arduous this whole trek is. And, you know, I saw a list about the 10 best Heisman winners of however long ago. And, you know, Travis Hunter's on the list and Joe Burrow's on the list and Jameis Winston is not on the list. And I was literally thinking about Jameis the other day for some reason before that list dropped, where I'm just like, man, like, don't really think we appreciate just how awesome he was. Well, I mean, we do, but the people outside the Florida State kind of bubble. But going back and looking at the touchdown from Kermit, and just, you know, you think about luck. You need like a lucky call, like a bad penalty might be able to help you out, or like a weird bounce of the ball. I mean, you can cry about it if you're an Auburn fan, but also don't cry about it. Cope. But all the things that had to go into that touchdown happening, I know it's a weird thing to bring this up in the middle of the show right now, Corbett. I want to go to it, but just all right. Like, how hard is it to win a national title? All the things that have to go right, and then like guys start cramping up. I'm watching it again, and it's incredible. But like none of that affected the way of the greatness I thought of that touchdown. But I'm sure there's people that are Auburn fans that think about that game, and they're like, if so and so doesn't get a cramp, we might be national champions. And there's all these things that we go back and we nitpick at Jimbo, and he got lucky doing this, he got lucky doing that. And it's like, yeah, man, but you know, sometimes you need all that to go right to win it all. So, yeah, I know we're comparing a Duke touchdown in a press release to a touchdown from another freshman in 2013.
Yeah.
Take similar games,
similar environments. I thought similar stages. I remember being just as juiced watching Sam Singleton take that to the house as I was Kermit. I wonder how many people were there for both. I bet Florida State had some fans there, but I bet it can't be more than a couple hundred that were there in Pasadena for Kermit's touchdown to help win a national championship, and then there for Singleton's touchdown in a game where your quarterback turned over 6 times in that game and you lost it at Duke to end that streak. Like, there can't be more than a couple hundred of us that were there for both. Different feels, different energies, but hey, it still counts. Yeah, man, it's hard. It's really hard. You think about, people think of the 99 team as just kind of coasting because they were wire to wire. Well, man, they were in a dogfight with Georgia Tech. Yep. They gave up 35 to Georgia Tech and won that game because they had Peter Warrick and Georgia Tech didn't. They only beat Clemson 17-14. They were horrible in that game for a good bit. That wasn't even a good Clemson team. The program wasn't very good back then. Right. Needed to beat, they had to knock down a Hail Mary at the end to beat Florida. That was a 7-point game. They were down in the fourth quarter to Virginia Tech and that freak show named Michael Vick. So they won a lot of close games too. It's just, any national championship anybody wins. Like, Ohio State, they might not be there if Nick Saban doesn't retire and Caleb Downs is still at Alabama.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Then it's not 3rd and 8 from the 8. It's maybe a touchdown. There's just so many things that go into it. That's why, as a Braves fan, I do appreciate getting there. You just give yourself a chance, and sometimes you get lucky. It's not lost on me that one of the worst Braves teams, maybe the worst by record, to make the postseason in my lifetime, won the World Series in 2021. I think they had like 86 wins. That's probably 87, something like that. That's the least regular season wins I got to imagine a Braves team has ever had to make the postseason. And then went ahead and won the World Series. And then the Dodgers, it feels like they cruised to the World Series this year. Well, they were down to their final strike in Game 1, and Freddie Freeman hits a walk-off grand slam. Like, it's nice that you got Freddie Freeman on your team, but what if he misses that ball by a quarter of an inch and it's a pop-up to right field? It's just how sports is. It's how sports is. You got to have a lot of breaks, and you got to have good players, good coaches, all that stuff, and you got to get breaks along the way.
26 had the angle on him, man. Maybe it was 28. Had the angle on Kermit, but
Yeah, man, Kermit was a different kind of fast. And then when you watch that replay, folks, watch Carlos Williams running with him.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't get a lot of distance from Carlos. No. Carlos is his lead blocker, and Carlos isn't, like, falling behind in the picture. He's running pretty even with Kermit. And, Auburn fans can think that, but it's like, okay, so maybe that kid doesn't cramp up on kickoff coverage, and you tackle Kermit at the 32. Well, you still got Jameis Winston. And when he did get the ball with a minute left, he went right down the field. There's nothing to say he wouldn't have just gone down the field and scored again. But the luckiest part of that game, and people probably know where I'm going with this, by far the luckiest break for Florida State in that game was Jalen Ramsey missing that tackle.
Mm-hmm.
If he doesn't miss that tackle, Trey Mason doesn't score, but it's like 3rd and 2. Auburn's going to get the first down. Auburn might score with 9 seconds left. Instead, Trey Mason breaks that tackle from Jalen Ramsey, goes to the end zone, strikes his Heisman pose, and then watches the Heisman Trophy winner lead the game-winning drive a few moments later.
That legitimately might be my favorite play in Florida State history is Kermit's touchdown return. Because I was there for it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I mean, I didn't even realize there was less than 5 minutes left when he popped that off.
Yeah, it was 3 touchdowns scored in the last 5 minutes of that game.
Yeah, because it was because that was, I think, what Auburn hit a field goal. It was 21-20. They made it 24-20.
Yes, yeah.
So it's like, all right, that was a win. All right, we held them to a field goal. Let's just go down let's see what we can do on this drive here. But it's like, nope, Kermit just... Oh, let's get chills.
Well, it was such an uphill struggle all night.
Yeah.
Like, it just didn't seem like the Florida State game from that year. They were struggling. Nothing was going right, I thought. They didn't play well.
They were horrible in the first half.
They were awful, and they were awful on 3rd down all night. I think they converted 1 3rd down the whole night. So just things that weren't like them. And it wasn't like, look, man.
And quite frankly, could have been worse in the first half too. I think Auburn he airmailed a couple throws on wide open guys.
Yeah, he definitely airmailed a wide open touchdown. But you never know how that goes. Like if they get up
butterfly effect.
Then maybe Jameis starts throwing more, or he gets, I don't know, there's more urgency, who knows. But either way, like, it was such a bad game, and then all of a sudden, everything that had gone wrong, he's breaking it off into the end zone, and Florida State's got the lead in the fourth quarter of the national championship game when they hadn't played well. That was it just seemed to come out of nowhere. Like, wait, what? Florida State's winning? How has this happened? And then Nick Marshall makes an unbelievable play where Mario Edwards is about to slam him down on 3rd down. I think it's Mario. He breaks the sack. He breaks the tackle, kind of rolls out to the sideline, and hits like a 14-yard pass on 3rd and 13 to keep that drive going. Or Gus might have punted and maybe never got the ball back. So it's fun to relive the glory days.
It is.
Instead of, we can go back to the Duke game.
Shout out.
So after Singleton's touchdown.
I can't believe it's crazy. It's like 373 yards on 15 kickoffs, and one of them was a 95-yard touchdown.
Come on, man. It's just he's the only one that did it. I mean, you guys can do the math and figure out how many yards he averaged on the other 14 kickoff returns. But it's fine. It's a cool thing to have to his name, that he's a freshman All-American.
One other thing I want to talk about, we'll talk about it right after this. It's the dawn of a new year. Let us manifest abundance. Or let us live on Earth and take a more measured approach. Do you know that 85% of us have at least one subscription going unused each month? Yeah, I'm included. Imagine paying $50 at the pump and getting no gas. Imagine dropping $20 on lunch and getting no food. Yeah. Let's get our affairs in order with Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel our unwanted subscriptions, plus it monitors our spending. This can help lower expenses and lets us grow our savings. Let's max out those 401ks and IRAs. Rocket Money's dashboard gives you a clear view of your expenses across all your accounts, allowing you to see all your subscriptions in one place and let you know exactly where your money's going. And for the subscriptions you don't want anymore, Rocket Money can even help you cancel them. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/game-on. That's rocketmoney.com/game-on. rocketmoney.com/game-on. Visit today. Wake Up Warchant, presented by Vitamin Energy, is back. Thanks for being here. Hit the thumbs up, rate, review, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. I don't know. Maybe we'll do a mailbag.
Okay, all right.
We'll see how we'll do maybe just one monthly mailbag as opposed to doing weekly during the football season. We'll try to get another show out there for you folks. We appreciate y'all tuning in. Shout out to
Hey, buried the lead, by the way, real quick. Antonio Cromartie Jr. is now a Nole. Yeah, he committed on Monday, I guess. Signed, whatever it is.
Right,
so that's cool.
We had Michael Langston on the show for Monday, and we talked a little bit about that, him and myself. So we kind of hinted that was going to possibly happen. But yeah, it's really cool, and it looks like even like 2 days later, Antonio Sr. keeps tweeting about just how like surreal it feels and how happy he is. So that's super awesome, man.
Yeah.
So a shout out to somebody who said the other day, because our show was quite long, man, y'all covered everything on the Monday episode, LOL. I very much enjoyed the episode. I could listen to Aslan and Corey talk to each other for 24 straight hours.
Wow. I never get that impression. That's really nice. I hope we have more comments like that.
Not you and I, but if we make it back to a national title game, we've got to do some kind of like 24-hour broadcast. Just all hands on deck. Like 4-hour JCS, 2-hour grown-up talk with Gene and Ira. We'll come do like a couple more hours of wake up, and we need to do something absolutely absurd.
What's like the 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. shift?
Freddie Coleman. We'll see if Freddie Coleman can hop on.
I was going to say, it could be me watching like Severance.
Yeah. Oh, have you started? I meant to start it the other day, but there was the Monday night
It
game.
hadn't started. It doesn't come out until the Friday, I think.
Oh, all
the
right.
new season. Yeah,
my lady was trying to tell me it already came out. I thought it was the 17th. Yeah, so I can't. Hey,
but if you guys are fans of Severance, and why wouldn't you be if you're listening to this? There's a really good podcast that it's Ben Stiller and Adam Scott going through every episode.
Okay.
And they're hour long. It's a good way because that show seems like it was 10 years ago.
Right.
And it's a good way to refresh yourself. They go through every episode of the first season, so it's a good way to refresh yourself what happened and remind yourself. And then apparently they're going to do it after every episode airs this year too. So that's pretty cool.
All right, very nice.
Ben Stiller's the director. He's not in it, but
crazy, right? Like I can't believe Ben Stiller directs that show. I mean, not what I would expect. But
something
it's an
about
awesome show.
Mary. Something about Mary fame.
That's right.
Ben Stiller.
Heavyweights.
Yes.
Name.
Yeah,
Ben
right.
Stiller. Want to get your thoughts on this, Corey? We mentioned it. I did it again. So Miami has a new defensive coordinator. They got him from the University of Minnesota, Corey Heatherman. Mm-hmm. Clemson pulled away Penn State's defensive coordinator, who warmed the seat for Frank Signetti. Is it Frank Signetti? No, it's the other. What's the other? What's the Signetti that's in Indiana?
Kurt.
Sorry, Kurt. I'll Google you. So yeah, Tom Allen was he was the defensive coordinator for Ole Miss, or he was an assistant at Ole Miss when Hugh Freeze was getting things rolling down there. Ends up getting the head coaching job in Indiana, and then lost it. Goes to Penn State, it's their defensive coordinator, and they end up making it to the semifinals this past year. Clemson pulls him away, and a lot of people are like, "Wow, that's crazy." Like at best, that's a lateral move, and you're going to a kind of lesser conference, and it's completely different from what Miami's had to do here. I think Miami was targeting Tyler Santucci from Georgia Tech. In addition, there's somebody else that was even a bigger name they were trying to go after that I think maybe they're going after Tennessee defensive coordinator, and he turned them down. So they ended up going after Minnesota's defensive coordinator, who did quite a turnaround in Minneapolis, Corey. So they were currently, this past season, Minnesota was 5th in total defense, 9th in scoring defense, 12th in rushing defense. This was after, in 2023, they were 54th, so they moved up 49 spots in total defense. They moved up 58 spots in scoring defense, and they moved up 50 spots in rushing defense in one season after this guy took over. Now, granted, they did not play Michigan nor they did play Penn State, but they did not play Ohio State or Oregon. So they did not play some of them. They did play Michigan, Aslan, so you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but that's not a big deal for defense.
Yeah.
That actually helps your defensive numbers to get to play Michigan this year.
Yeah, so they did not play the more high-scoring teams in the Big Ten, so I guess we can maybe take some solace in that. But thoughts on Clemson dipping into the portal, making a pretty big boy hire defensive coordinator, juxtaposed to Miami still going nuts with getting a quarterback in the portal and maybe not even $4 million, Corey. Apparently $10 million maybe to get Carson Beck, and then they had to go to Minnesota and poach a guy from PJ Fleck.
They should get Sam Darnold. He's going to be on the market soon after that performance the other night. Holy cow. He's going to cost less than Carson Beck. I think with the Penn State, I just don't know enough about Minnesota to know. I mean, I trust the numbers, so I'm sure he's good. I'm sure he'll, I assume he'll be an upgrade. It's just, and this sounds funny, but being a DC in the ACC is different than the Big Ten. It's harder. You got better receivers. You typically got better quarterbacks. He didn't have to play Oregon or Ohio State. And I'm not. That's not a.
Or Indiana. I don't think. Did they play Indiana, Aslan? They did not play Indiana.
Probably the three best teams, right, or the three best offenses. He didn't have to play. Now that's not an excuse. I don't know what Nebraska. I don't know who Nebraska played. I guess they did play Ohio State, but
and Indiana, and they got throttled by Indiana.
So, but it's just hard to know because you look at the teams in the Big Ten. They're different kinds of teams than what you have to cover, and go get good players. That's how you can judge a DC, and that's why I saw on the message boards a couple of people were like worried that Clemson had just gotten the Penn State DC, and look, man, on paper, like at first glance, that's a really impressive hire because we all just saw what Penn State was on defense this year, and they're like, what, you went and got the Penn State defensive coordinator with all those great players that guy? Well, he didn't bring them in. He was there for a year. He was in Indiana, went 3-9, got fired, landed at Penn State as the defensive coordinator, obviously did a very good job at Penn State, didn't screw it up.
You know who he replaced?
Manny Diaz, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So, but Manny had more of an impact on that roster, I think, than Tom Allen did.
You sound like Brian Kelly right now. Brian Kelly talking about I'm going to root for Notre Dame. I don't care that people got mad at me for leaving. I recruited most of that roster.
Oh, did he say that?
Something along the lines of that. He's like, a lot of people on that roster. That's, I help recruit.
Good for him, Brian Kelly. Yeah. There, you remind him. You tell him, Brian Kelly. It's just a coincidence they're in a national title game now that you left. Yeah. But I think that I guess he got them there to 1-2, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
They got pummeled
by
Alabama. But I just think when you look at that, you're like, man, and this isn't homerism. I don't know if it'll come true. I would be, if I'm a Florida State fan, I do think the defensive coordinator you got is more of a sure thing than the one that Clemson got. I think that guy has done it at multiple schools.
Yep.
He had Syracuse was a good defense for what they are, and then Nebraska was a very good defense for 2 years. This guy was a head coach in Indiana, got fired. His replacement went 11-1. He went 3-9, and he went and coached at Penn State that has got, 2 or 3 first-rounders?
That Abdul Carter guy's an absolute freak show.
Unbelievable. So's 33. They got players all over the place. It's almost like you just can't screw it up. So again, and I know that sounds like I'm being dismissive or diminishing. It's a good hire. It's certainly a big name.
It's an upgrade. It's an upgrade over.
It's an
Wes
upgrade.
Goodwin guy.
But I don't think you have to fear that all of a sudden Clemson's defense is going to turn into Penn State. It could, but it's not like his track record says it's so. Like he was in Indiana for 7 or 8 years. It wasn't. He hasn't been just stocking rosters all over the country for 3 or 4 years. He was in Indiana for 8 years, was pretty good, recruited Michael Penix, then got fired because they were bad, and then he went to Penn State for a year. Now he's the Clemson DC. Again, what would Adam Fuller have done as the Penn State defensive coordinator this past year? Probably pretty good, right?
Well said. Yeah.
Probably pretty good. Because he had a similar talent in 2023. And Adam Fuller was pretty good in 2023. So we'll see. I would be very, very worried as a Florida State fan if he had been at Penn State for the last 3 or 4 years, and you're like, oh, that's the guy that developed these dudes.
Like
that's
Phil
the guy
Parker
that
from Iowa or something, right?
Yes,
been doing
that.
It.
And man, he just yes, absolutely. He has a track record. He knows how to put together a roster of great defensive players. This guy got to kind of come along after he got fired. I'm trying not to diminish it, but I am. And he was given the keys to a really nice car. He's still getting a pretty good car, by the way, at Clemson. I know they've recruited pretty well, but I don't think they've recruited as well as Penn State did before he got there. But hey, as I said on the message boards, I would be worried if he was bringing some Penn State guys with him.
Right.
But I don't know if he is.
Yeah, and I don't know if Carson Beck's going to bring any wide receivers with him. Apparently, said he's going to bring some of his friends with him. It's there's not a lot of great receivers at Georgia this past season for him to bring.
No, man, why would he want to throw to them?
Yeah, and then
drop every other pass.
And then last thoughts. This is not going to be. It's not ratified or anything, but it got the approval from the coaches at the AFCA convention, the American Football Coaches Association, but one
it
window.
It was a suggestion, right? It was their suggestion.
Well, yeah, they're all like, we're down for this, but then it's got to go before like a competition committee, then the NCAA's got to ratify it. But one window, 10 days, early January after bowl games, no spring window. That's a transfer portal.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's better for the bowls. It's the colleges have to adjust their enrollee times clearly, because Florida State, if they start on January 5th, I don't know where drop ad is, but it needs to be sometime in February, I guess, to make sure these guys get on campus. But it just makes sense, man. And look, I think normally with something like this, when the coaches vote on it, it'll get pushed through. Why would the NCAA? It has to be approved by the NCAA, but why would the NCAA fight that? It's what the coaches want. It's their will. Yeah. So why would the NCAA have a problem with it? I guess other than what I just mentioned, the changes to the academic calendar. But you can make changes to the academic calendar, or you can just give, what do you call it? Exemptions. You can give exemptions to players for unforeseen circumstances if they're transferring January 7th. But yeah, think about I just think the bowls would be better. I mean, it wasn't just it's not just that Cam Ward sat out half of a game. That whole team, there was 12 of those guys that weren't even on the roster anymore because they were in the portal or they had already committed to another school. One team, it was Oklahoma, right, that had less than 50 scholarship players. Florida State in the Orange Bowl had less than 50 scholarship players. Not all of them are sitting out for the NFL. Some of them are because they feel like they have to. They have to go take visits and because it's a small window for them too. So yeah, I hope that's what happens because December is just lunacy. It's pure lunacy. Well, I don't know. It was fun though. It made for a fun December, especially after a 2-10 disgrace. Yeah. It made for a fun December to wake up and check Twitter and check our message boards and see what Iris texting to see who's coming. That was fun. I don't know if we want to after the Florida game. If they're not in the playoff, then you have to think about the portal. You don't have anything to do for 3 weeks.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. That's a wrap on the show. Jeff Cameron's show, 1 to 4 o'clock, question mark? I know they were on they're on demand earlier in the week, but check out 93.3 FM or just subscribe to Warchant TV. That's our YouTube channel, totally free. All the good stuff, though, resides over at warchant.com, the ultimate Seminoles sports source. Go check that out. Might have a thread on the Tribal Council soliciting questions from you folks, a.k.a. the Renegade Express, or maybe we'll just talk about life and the football program in general, and should Miami just cancel its basketball program?
All right, yeah.
It's
a good question. It's a very good question.
I mean, I meant to put a large sum of money on them losing to Duke by whatever the spread was going to be, but I didn't because I don't have any money in my account because I keep losing all the time.
Me and you and me both, partner.
So, all right, we'll be back, we think, with another show this week. Subscribe. That way you'll know whenever we do drop a show. It'll be right there in your phone. We would appreciate it. He's Corey Maslon. Thanks for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by Vitamin Energy.